Welcome everyone. The topic for the day is skill approach and psychodynamic approach. So let us proceed with the topic. We will be talking this presentation into two separate segments. One of that skill and the other one would be a psychodynamic approach as the case might be. So basic overview as I keep on mentioning around here. We will talk about the perspective on the basis of skill. Then we'll look after the three skills thing. We will be talking about the skill-based models, Mumford and 2000, and how does this skill approach actually work. That is what we will be talking around. So, skill approach description, what exactly it is all about it. Let us understand the point of view as in perspective and probably the definition thereof. So, perspective is it's a leader-centric perspective that we are looking into it. We are also emphasizing on the skills and the abilities thereby that can be learned or probably curated as with the passage of time. Let us proceed with the definition. The leadership skills, the ability to use one's knowledge and competencies to accomplish a particular set of goals, a particular set of objective. In this case, in an organization, goals and objective thereby. So there are this definition that leadership skills are the ability to use one's knowledge and competencies to accomplish these sets of goals and the desired objective, where the perspective being it might be a leader centric approach or probably the skills and the abilities, the technicalities can be learned, can be picked up with a little bit of coaching and practices thereby. So the three skills approach. Now, way back in 1955, Cat says about the three skills, which is based on technical, human, and conceptual skills. Remember, the top management will be utilizing much of a conceptual skill and less of a technical skill. The bottom supervisory levels, so the bottom employees would be more interested in the technical know-how. They will be actually going through the mundane process of production, so they will be technically know-how. And in between with the skilled supervisors, the managers, who are actually have to have a blend of technicals and a blend of human skills, but they are predominantly human and technicals, wherein the lower rung of the employees will be predominantly technical and very less of conceptual. On the other hand, the top management will be more or less more predominantly in having possessing the conceptual skills, and the least things would be the technical as the case might be. So let us understand. It has been actually been given up to you. Remember what did I say about the top management? The top management it believes that less of technical and more of conceptual, probably of human relations thereby, but is like least of technical. Whereas on the supervisory level, if you look into it, this is least of conceptual and more of technical and human. And the middle management, we have to have a knack of everything, be it the human skill, the technical skill, the conceptual skill. So leaders need to build this repository of the skills that comes around with the importance of the position that they occupy. Remember, everybody is a leader. No wonder which level the person is working around it, at the bottom level, at the mid level, or probably at the top level, as the case might be. So technical skills, having knowledge about and being proficient in a specific type of work or activity. We are talking about specialized competencies, the analytical ability, the use of appropriate tools and technique that might be put into progress. That is what we are looking around here. Technical skills involves hands-on ability. You are actually doing and learning the work in the when you are in the process of doing it. So it's an hands-on activities for the product and the process. Most important at the lower level of the management, which I have already stated around time and number of times ahead also. So we'll talk about the human skill. Remember, organization is full of employees. Our organization cannot succeed if there are no employees who are collectively working to achieve the organizational goal. So having a human skill is pertinent, be it the top management, be it the middle management. That is one crux theory that comes around it. In fact, it will be prudent to say even at the lower rung of this of the organization, human skills has a vital importance role. Remember, being aware of one's own perspective and others' perspective at the same time is how you understand the relationship building process, assisting group members in working cooperatively to act to achieve the certain goals that is predominantly there. We are working to one particular goals that the organization is striving to achieve. Let's say delivering customer service, having a quality product. Let's say being the most cost effective organization. So creating an atmosphere of trust, empowerment of members being employees thereby, and it is important at every level. No wonder top, middle, or the lower level as the case might be. But in conceptual skill, essentially is the cognitive ability of understanding or deciphering the things in the organization, be it the policies, be it the issues, be it the event, what the company stands for and where it is going around. So works easily with abstraction and hypothetical notions per se. So you will have to understand what is the conceptual skills, is the cognitive abilities to distinguish between ethical and non-ethical, between what right and not so right, between doable works and probably being between avoidable work. It is central to creating and articulating a vision and strategic plan for an organization. Definitely, I have stated earlier also that conceptual skills becomes a bulk of the most important activity for the top management thereby. So skill-based model, did I say that this particular presentation is all about skill approach and psychodynamic approach? And we are, in fact, I have actually segmented this presentation into two halves altogether, the skill approach and then the psychodynamic approach. And so skill-based model would always be looking at into their point of view as in building competencies. Competencies are individual characteristics that comes around it, the leadership outcomes that goes around it, the career experiences and the environmental influences that we are looking into. So competencies has to be built as for the individual or the employee centric, as for the leadership centric or leadership capabilities. Thereby, we are looking at the career experiences and environmental influences. So let us understand what Mumford, Zakharov, Hodding, Jacobs, and Fleischmann way back in 22 years back, 2000 years, they said about the skill model description, again based on the definition part and the perspective part. Research says way back in 1990s, studies goes to identify leadership factor which create exemplary job performances. Do we look forward to it? Emphasizes the capabilities that make effective leadership possible rather than what the leaders do, as to what we are looking forward to. Skill based models of leadership, on the other hand, it is all about capabilities. It is all about capabilities. You know what is your abilities to form a bond with the leaders, to acquire a knowledge, to excel in a skill, and probably deliver the leaders' performances. Suggest many people have the potential for the leadership. They have to be curated, they have to be groomed, and they have to be relatively exposed slowly and slowly into the real life scenario, and they will blossom a wonderful leaders as the case might be. So that is what a skill model description is all about it. That the three component of the models I have said about the individual attributes and the leadership outcomes. You need to understand it is the individual attributes and the leadership outcomes. How do the transition happen upon it? Attributes being the general cognitive ability, the thought process, the mental attitude, crystallizing cognitive abilities, motivation and personality. It's the thought, it's the principle, the values that the person carries around it, how motivated or how able he is or she is able to display or probably command over his or her fraternity. Then comes the competency. This is where the actual abilities to of the person needs to be displayed around the problem solving skill, the social judgment skill, the knowledge, actual abilities of the people that needs to be done of forming bonds, of leading from the front, of thinking out of the box, of providing a gainful knowledge that leads to the eventual outcomes of a leader out in a person. It is all been as effective as a problem solver or enhancing the performance of the team altogether. Now, this was adapted from this book called Leadership Skills for Changing World, Solving Complex Social Problems by Mumford, Zakharov, Holding and Jacobs, we have been saying it way back in 2022 years from today. Yeah, yes, we are talking about competency skills. Yes, the competency skills are all of problem solving, all of resolving issues, all of building relationships, all of forming bonds, all of knowledge, all of skills. So this is what we are looking around it. These are essentially steps for competencies skills thereby. The problem solving would be coming with an out of box solution or coming with a solution which is win-win-win, coming with a solution which is acceptable for all the stakeholders, and that is what problem solving would be. Social judgment is to capacity to understand people and probably form bond, have a strong network, build good interpersonal relationship, have a perspective taking. Now this needs to be understood when you don't have only see things, issues or events from your own perspective, from the other person's perspective, or and that is what will make you much more socially acceptable. The behavioral flexibility has to be maintained and the social performance taken into consideration. We comes to knowledge, the accumulation of information, the mental structure and the organizations that needs to be cultivated or curated, and this is what we should be going around it. Let us come to individual attributes. Individual attributes is all about your thought process, the general cognitive abilities, that is the person intelligence as far as perceptual process is concerned, information processing is concerned, general reasoning, creative divergent and thinking. It all adds up how multifunctional your brain is, your mind is, how you uh, captivate data and process the data and come up with viable decision. Then this is all about general cognitive abilities. It is all about crystallized cognitive abilities as what where do you process your data and things like that, the intellectual ability learned, acquired over a period of time and come up with a decision. Motivation is the three aspects wherein it's a well-issued dominance and social good, wherein you want to work for the company, wherein you want to ensure that your existence will mark a difference into the company. We talk about personality, any characteristic that helps people cope with complex organizational situation is probably related to the leader's performances thereby, and that is what we are looking forward to. Leadership outcomes as problem solving and performances criteria being originality, quality of solutions to problem situation. Good problem solving involves creating solutions that are logical, that are effective, that are unique, and probably go beyond given informations, as the case might be. Performances is degree to which a leader has successfully performed his or her assigned duties thereby. This is what we are looking forward to you, and that is the leadership outcome. The leadership outcome is basically all about performances and problem solving, solving issues, removing hindrances, enhancing performances, reaching objective, and that what makes a person catapults to the position of a leader, as the case might be. I will give you the skill model of leadership you require. We have already said about the individual outcomes, that the leadership outcomes that can be displayed by the individual attributes and the competencies that the person has. Remember, these competencies and individual attributes are all related to your career experiences, how and what mitigates you, what is your thought process. It depends upon the competencies, it depends upon your abilities, it depends upon the technical qualities, the knowledge, the acumen that comes around it. But overall, the superficial influences would be your environmental influences. So people are shifting jobs from one company to another company. Why? Because environmentally it might tell to them that the other company is bigger, better, with a brighter future. Probably in this case, the person might be doing the same jobs but somewhere else. That might be one of the reasons. But what happens when the environment is very dynamic? The people don't shift companies, probably they shift industries altogether. So they pick up new trades, they pick up new skills, and then that is what needs to be understood as your career experiences and environmental influences that goes around it. So let us understand career experiences before I go to the environmental experiences. It is all about challenging assignment or probably performing beyond your abilities, beyond your skin, mentoring, appropriate training, and hands on experiences novelty. This is what experience gained during the career influences of a knowledge that the leaders actually gain, of the skill that the leaders actually employ to solve complex problems. Remember, leaders learn and develop higher level of conceptual capacity if they progressively confront more complex and a long-term problem, as the case might be. Let us understand the environmental influences. Environmental influences are essentially internal and external. Internal means the internal environment basically behaves as an outdated technology or the skills level of the technologies or the employees. So is it relevant? The technology that you employed, is it relevant, still relevant with the time? And the external environment influences might be economic, might be political, might be social, might be natural disaster, as the case might be. So, how does the skill approach work? It is basically nothing but the focus of the skill approach is all about strength, criticism, application, as the case might be. We are talking nothing. We are only talking in terms of what skills makes relevance, what is the shift that is happening, the paradigm shift that is happening in the environment, the industries. We need to build upon those strengths and probably go away, take the critic away altogether and the applications thereof. So skill approach is focus being a primarily descriptive. It tells about the leaders from the skills perspective, what all essential skills that the leader must possess, provide structure for understanding the nature of effective leadership. That is what we are talking around it. Principal research perspective, Katz, way back in 1955, suggested that leadership skill varies depending where the person resides in the management hierarchy. When I say management hierarchy, it might be the top level, mid level, or the lower level. That is what Katz would be doing around it. At top level, the leadership would be a little bit complicated, or should I mention the sophisticated in the behavior. That might not be the case if the leader resides at the lower rung of the management or lower rung of the organization, the hierarchy that is we are talking about. Mumford, Campion, and Moxon in 2007 suggested that higher level of all skills needed at every higher level of hierarchy, as and when on basis you move on the higher echelon of the organization, you need to pick everything. You have to be a jack of all trades, if not the master of all. So you need to have the knack, knowledge of every trade that comes around it. Mumford, Sakharov, Harding, way back in 2000, suggested that leadership outcomes are direct result of the leaders' skill competency. It is the inherent ability of the leaders in terms of knowledge and skill that translate into an efficient problem solver or a social judgment and the knowledge thereby. So strength, first approach is to conceptualize, create a structures, probably process the leaderships around the skills. Describing leadership in terms of skills made leadership available to everyone. This is what is pertinent. Provides an expansive view. Remember, gives a long-term view. It is not a myopic view that we are talking about it. It's a wider horizon. It's a longer time term view which incorporates a wide variety of components in terms of technology, in terms of employees, in terms of leadership, in terms of industry, as the case might be. It gives a consistent structure with the leaders' educational programs. Now we'll talk about the weaknesses of the criticism that comes around it. The breadth of the skill approach appears to be extend beyond the boundaries of leadership. At times, definitely yes, it says that a leader has to possess every Tom, Dick, and Harry skills. You know, you name of the skills, you name of the project, you name of the knowledge, probably is unfathomable, weak in predictive values, because it again doesn't tell us how a person, despite having all the requisite skill, will be an effective leader eventually. Does not explain how skill lead to an effective leader. That is what I said. So it is the skill model includes individual attributes like a trait model or trait like structure. Then we are talking about the application. The skill approach provides a way to delineate the skill of leaders. It is applicable to the leaders at every level within an organization. The skill inventory can provide a definite analytics about the individual competencies, a definite understanding about what the person is good at and what the person might need require improvement. We are talking about the test scores that allows leaders to learn about areas which they may wish to seek further improvement. Now we come to the second half of the presentation of the psychodynamic approach. Let us understand understand what psychodynamic approach will be all about it, the perspective there, the clinical paradigm. We are talking about the history of the psychodynamic approach, the key concept and the dynamics within the psychodynamic approach, and how does the psychodynamic approach actually works around it. So first and foremost, let me describe you. Leadership is all about having complex forces and dynamics at play in an organization and managing them at the same time. That is what leadership is all about. It constantly shifting irrational forces, underlining seemingly rational behavior and choices. Because there the eventual saying is, you as a leader you will be able to understand the randomness, or should I say, you will understand or decipher the method in the madness that comes around it. Yes, people uh, might behave irrationally. People might come up with out of box suggestions which might be seemingly unfathomable or seemingly unexecutable. But the leaders should be in the perspective to understand and not to negate any suggestion thereby. So that is the method in the madness that the leader should be able to pinpoint. Approach acknowledges that the people are essentially complex, unique, and paradoxical beings with a rich myriad of motivational environment. Now, let us understand the four basic premises. Now, what are the four basic premises? There is a cause and effect business for every event, or should I say, there's a rationale behind how an individual act. It is all about your inner values, feelings, principles, which actually consciously motivates you to act in a particular fashion. A great deal of life lies outside the conscious awareness. This is what the clinical paradigm, as far as psychodynamic approach, is all about it. So we are all witnessing product, and we are all a product of our own experiences, own past experiences, own knowledge. Most central part of the person is that he or she regulates this expressions of emotion, as the case might be. Sigmund Freud says is a neurotic symptoms manifest in the people's inner drives. Acting out behavior helps us to understand what is there underlying in our unconscious mind. Repetition of certain dysfunctional patterns suggests that motivational undercurrent that affect decision making. Remember, I didn't apply to his ideas to the working world, and believe me or not, the working world, the real world, is very different from the laboratory world or the control world. So there are certain repetition of dysfunctional patterns suggest that motivational undercurrent that affects the decision making, as per Sigmund Freud. Let us talk about another institute of London, Tavistock. What they say, they were the first to apply psychodynamic approach to the organizational being, wherein they treated organization as a lab in itself, as an ecosystem in itself. The London Tavistock Institutes actually viewed organization from a prism, and from a binocular, and they studied the unconscious functioning of the group, how people were motivated as a whole, as a group, rather than as an individual. There was hidden dynamics within the organization, and everybody has their own hidden agenda, no matter what they are talking about it. Finance people would always like to source money at a cheaper rate, like to save money. On the other hand, the marketing gentleman or the lady would like to spurge money to bring in more customers. Remember, both their activities is for the benefit of the organization, but both have different attitude. In sense, one wants to save money, the other wants to spend money. Both of them would like the organization not only to swim but probably exceed far better performances than what they can actually go around it. And this was all about a study that took place over a period of 2 decades, roughly. We're talking about the democracy, the defense system, anxiety, social dreaming. Yeah, it's written about the organizational role. 17 years of study of Glacier Metal in Scotland as a company. That Glacier Metal was a company. The Menninger Clinic, what does it say? The Menninger and Levinson, way back in 50s, conducted extensive national survey about the cognitive health of the industries. They recommend how to solve them. What is burnt out syndrome? What happened if there's a offered a week-long seminar for executive to understand what people say and why do people say, even what they say and what they mean. Need to understand that, dissect or differentiate noises from the sounds. It is all about Levinson links to the failure of managers to contain anxieties of workers, and which actually eventually led to depression and lower productivity. You remember, this is where Levinson actually developed the concept of psychological contact altogether. Let's say Zelzink, what does it say? It says it influences a group of scholars interested in combining organizational studies with psychoanalysis. This was, for example, Katzvries, Kacker, Lorin, and others who were of this opinion, where they want to understand why an organization, despite being the same industry, certain organization is doing wonderfully well, whereas certain other companies within that same industry is not doing so well. What goes right and what is clicking for the other organization? Argued that the business focused too much on the process, probably on the structure and not enough of the ideas, people, emotion. They treat people as not as an asset but probably as a cost center, and that is what we are looking into it. Leaders should relate to the followers in more empathetic and intuitive way. Seminal studies, the neurotic organization. Cantivrace and Miller proposed that neurosis of top leaders can recreate an organization. It's the leader who can make the organization successful. It is the leader who can mar the organization if the leader can only have a good semblance of understanding of what is emotion, what are the ideas, and not only look after the process and structure thereby. Rishon says something else. He used applied clinical practice to describe organizational consulting intervention that included diagnostic methods that is based on clinical psychology. Remember the workplace within. This was a book of psychodynamics of organizational life published in 1988. Stated the irrational and emotional characters of our organization. Stated certain times the organization does behave which is something out of the normal. In fact, they in the verge of going driving away competition, they might go to certain level which is completely unacceptable or even illogical to be stated in a very softly. Proposed working with the real clients on practical outcomes by addressing hidden and unconscious mechanism underlying patterns of organization behavior. There were Mitscherlich said that applying psychoanalytic principle post the World War II society, the people were having certain drawbacks and probably they were unable to assimilate with a normal life. Why? Because they were exposed to extreme situation, extreme severity, extreme in extreme duress, if I may say so. So, Society Without Fathers, in this particular book, the inability to mourn shaped Germany's analysis for the causes of their war. Open field of social psychology to broader audiences, how fantasies, projection, identification, probably even suppression and repression play out in groups as the case might be. This is what we are talking about it. Let us summarize the history right from what we have discussed from Sigmund Freud to London Pavlov Institute as the case might be. Field has come a long way since Sigmund Freud to apply concept of functioning and leaders in organization. Psychoanalytical techniques and theories have become increasingly sophisticated. Whether they are accepted, whether they are debated, whether they are to be understood or needs further understanding is a different question altogether. Interacting with other domains such as anthropology, neuroscience, cognitive theory, and family system theory is all about it. All about it that brings around it. It tells whether the heredity of the person and what was the upbringing of the person, which will relate to his future behavior status. Many components of the theory have been empirically tested and possibly verified. Let us understand the focus on the inner theater. Inner theater is the stage filled with people who have influenced our life for better or for worse. People have been subjected to experiences, good experiences and bad experiences. Experiences, extreme when I say need not only be in a negative connotation, might be a positive connotation. That will make the personality of the person based on the experiences. Early experience of key individual contributes to the creation of responses pattern. A, a person who have had only good experiences will be happy and gay in life and probably will treat everybody with respect and equitability. On the other hand, if a person is with bad experiences, will not be treating everybody in a happy and gay fashion, will be treating them with a rough. roughly altogether will not be equitable, will be biased, will be self-centered, and so on. So there are core conflicting relationship theories as CCRT, which has been developed over a period of time. We can act these things in our workplaces. Understanding a person's core conflicting relationship themes, CCRT, helps us in understanding the motivation behind his or probably her behavior, the key relationship conflicts, and the work that align or is in deep wishes with more productive and interpersonal relation. Focus on the leader-follower relation. Wilford Bion, 1959, the three basic assumptions in groups: dependency, fight, or flight basis. So, if in case there is any threatening situation, the person might try to fight the situation, or take a flight, or run away from the situation, or have an in between situation wherein he or she would like to fight and take a flight as on when on basis. So these behaviors may result in regressive process, deflecting people from tasks to be performed. We are talking about the unconscious assumptions one, where people might unconsciously expect everything from the organization, everything from the leader to offer them every sort of protection and guidance and give up their autonomy, thus hindering their own cognitive development, own creative thinking, and probably decision making skills are largely inhibited. So we talk about the unconscious assumption two, wherein the organization world is dangerous. The participant must fight or flight for as a defense mechanism, creates a bipolar view. Bipolar view, when I say it's a good world or a bad world, nothing in between. Friend or a foe, in group or out group, result in a sense of unity, but makes the group more dependent on the leader. Remember, this is unconscious assumptions of two. But what about third thing? It is all about taking sides. Taking sides with a powerful person, subgroup, or grouping up, or teaming up, which will help the person cope up with certain anxiety, alienation, loneliness. So therein the unions comes around it. Pairing may result in splitting an intergroup conflict, as in what the politics would always gang up against the leader or for the perceived aggressor thereby. So we have the self-defense mechanism. Organization life is filled with fear, with unpredictability. When organization anxiety is not properly managed, people may act out, split, projection, displacement, denial, and so on and so forth. Typically, executives rely on existing structures and existing processes to contain anxiety. If we don't have that structure, that support system, probably things go wrong. If the social defense mechanism has to be put in place, the bureaucratic routine end up creating obstacles and creating employee detachment. That is what should be avoided in the very first place. Let us talk about mirroring. Let us talk about idealizing. Mirroring is all about the helps the cues that has been or behaved those from around us. This is what we need to talk around it. Can become collusive. Why? Because followers are eager to use their leaders, or probably are likely to mimic their leaders for what they see, what they feel is being done by the leaders is the successful or the thing to be in line with the leaders in the right perspective by the side of the leaders positive affirmation. So that is what the followers would be following it up. Remember, leaders find affirmation of followers hard to resist. Absolutely hard to resist. They get appreciated. In fact, they should caress their egos altogether. So leaders may actually show up the images rather than serve the organizational needs. And this is where the organizational needs goes for a toss. Probably, if not taken care of by the leader thereof, the key concept is always to be identified by the superior group, the superior person, the aggressor, if I may say so. It is the superior force. People sometimes feel need to become like that force to protect themselves, to be in their camps, to be in their teams, to group up with themselves, and in the extreme of those who are threatened become those that making threats. So there is a difference. The organization becomes divided into haves and have-nots. So as the company or the community comes around it, leader sees people either for or against them, as the case might be. We talk about follow the. It's all about the shared madness. It is all about the madness that about what we call saying about it. It is the chaos theory that comes around it, where everything is going doldrums and you are not able to make sense until and unless that dominant person delusions are adopted by the member of the organization. This is where the dominant person will ensure that the person, the characteristic, the dictum, the statement, the behavior that has been displayed by him or her should be mimicked by every one of the team members in the organization. Leaders whose capacity for reality testing goes on to be impaired may transfer delusions to followers in order to minimize conflict, probably even sacrifice truth and honest criticism. Let us focus the shadow of side leadership. It is all about narcissism, behavior that range from normal self-interest to the pathological self-absorptions about being self-centric altogether. That is what narcissism is all about. It constructive narcissism are well balanced, have a sense of is good self-esteem, capacity for introspection, reflection, understanding, empathy, and they inspire others to be better or even change what they do. Reactive narcissists are fixated the power of status, as the case might be. We are talking about superiority. Don't tolerate disagreement and criticism. They rarely consult with anybody else thereby. And how does the psychodynamic approach work? We need to come around it. Remember, an effective organization need to understand the complexity. Why a particular person behave the way they do. The people has to differ in their motivational pattern. People are unique to themselves. Leaders and followers are not one-dimensional, but are definitely be complex and paradoxical. The essence of leadership is the ability to use motivational patterns to influence other. Leadership also has a dark side, and that success can come from unexpected place, and it is not entirely rational. Either way, so you need to understand the psychodynamic, what works and what doesn't work, how it has to be adapted in a change situation, the change in individual per se. Challenges is to relate psychodynamic theory to other organizational theories, focusing solely on unconscious motivations of individuals and group limits applications to a larger system. Focusing solely on large system may overlook sources of motivation, the energy of individuals who actually make up the system thereby. So the strength of psychodynamic approaches is all to address the undercurrent, the cause and effect relation in the organization life, to understand a personal insights about why a people is behaving in a particular way as on the part of the leaders involves an in-depth and a systematic investigation of a single person, of a group, of a team, of a community, of a functional area, you name it, and we can understand, decipher the behavior thereby, focuses on the underlying drivers of the leaders and the followers thereby. Now, there might be and is definitely criticism about psychodynamic approach altogether. This is where we are talking about the work which is based on a clinical observation of people with mental illness. So they were started as a clinical issue that comes around it did not lend itself to training the conventional senses. No standard solution for every individual that comes around it. We need to understand this thing. Situation interventions at the group level and the individual level are more structured, more systematic, which might not be the case in the real life world. In the real life world, everything will be chaotic, everything will be uncontrolled. It is the general world that comes around it. Let us understand the application, the peer group coaching, the participant works together. They work together to uncover blind spot. People who do not understand have a complete 360-degree perspective which challenges one another. It helps to identify what behaviors are to be changed and how do we go ahead with it. Tipping point for changes when a participant make a connection between their current choice and life, sees discrepancies, sees anomalies in their life, and try to find them and realign them, probably close the gap if there are any. Consultant and the client work together to address the social differences with an aim to heal the organizational neurosis. We talk about the group coaching, external group facilitator. It is all about pre-intervention interviews. It is all about the participants that they identify with major illness. I said that 360-degree feedback is what we are looking at it. We are talking about the self-portrait exam exercises, the feedback, the discussion, the two-way dialogue, the hot seat opinions, which needs to be deciphered, opinion that needs to be discussed, opinion that need not agree with one another. The follow-up is all about group become mutually invested, mutually encouraging one another, have a beneficial relationship and finding a courageous way to converse, and people learn how to give and probably receiving feedback. So applications are cathartic experiences, mutual identification, psychodynamic lenses. And these are all the tipping points for change: willingness to experiment, vicarious learning, real community, collective learning, altruistic motive, you name it. These are the processes that comes around it. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video. Thanks once more. I am sure you have understood what are the skill approach and the psychodynamic approach thereby. Thank you.